This evening, we're sitting down with the candidates for the Maricopa County Sheriff's race. First, Tyler Kamp, who has over 20 years' experience with the Phoenix Police Department, joins us. Then, Jerry Sheridan, a former chief deputy with MCSO, sits down with us to talk about his general election campaign. Plus, who's ahead in the national polls, Trump or Harris? This is Before You Vote. Welcome, I'm Mike Broomhead. Now, before we begin our conversation with the Maricopa County Sheriff candidates, let's jump right into some of the latest headlines, both locally and nationally. First of all, Emerson polling about the national races, presidential race in swing states. What's interesting, of 7 swing states, 4 of those swing states are within 1 point of each other. Either Harris is up a point or Trump is up a point. In 2 of them, one of them being Arizona, the other being Michigan, you've got a 3-point lead. 3-point lead for Trump in Arizona, 3-point lead for Harris in Michigan. And then the state of Pennsylvania is dead even at 48-48. Now, I will tell you, when you look at those numbers, first of all, statistically, it's anybody's race. But more than anything else, we have seen the honeymoon kind of subsiding for the Harris campaign, which they did a great job with before, during, and after their DNC. But now comes the fight. It's not just going to be television ads. We are going to see here, this battle is going to be fought on the debate stage. September 10th, that debate is going to be immensely important to both candidates, because if you look at the independent breakdown, you have Vice President Harris leading with independent voters, but there's a lot of undecided independents in there that could go either way and could be swung. That's going to be an interesting race. Also on the campaign, Jimmy McCain, the son of the late Senator John McCain, announced he is not only throwing his support behind Vice President Harris, he is also switching his party affiliation from independent to Democrat. I thought that was interesting, but not surprising. After the rift with the McCain campaign between the McCains and the Trumps, it's not surprising that a McCain is endorsing Vice President Harris. What was surprising, his sister, Meghan McCain, came on my radio show on KTAR News in Phoenix, and she said she would not support either one. The policies of the Harris campaign, she said, she called an existential threat to America, that she said there is no way, policy-wise, she would ever throw her support behind the vice president. But she also said, based on family history and the things that have been said about her dad, there's no way that she could possibly support the former president. And then locally here in the city of Phoenix, where I live, 2 police officers shot in the line of duty. One of those officers shot in the ballistic vest is going to recover, and that is great news. The bad news is one of those officers was very seriously wounded, and the last report at the taping of this show, he's fighting for his life. This is a young officer with a young family. It happened at 16th Street in McDowell. A suspect that was breaking into vehicles, and this suspect has had multiple run-ins with the law, has been to prison many times. He's got an arrest record in Maricopa County, Pinal County, Pima County, Navajo County, and been in prison multiple times, and now shoots 2 police officers. If you'd like to donate and you'd like to be able to help PLEA, the Phoenix Law Enforcement Association, go to pleacharities.org and click on the donate button. Stay with us as Tyler Kamp joins us in studio to talk about the election campaign for the sheriff's race. This is Before You Vote. Welcome back to Before You Vote. Maricopa County Sheriff's Office, Democrat candidate Tyler Kamp. Now, first of all, we say Democrat candidate, but it really, if there are any offices that really are nonpartisan, wouldn't you agree that the Sheriff's Office is one of them?
It should be, yes, absolutely.
So let's talk about your race. Congratulations on the primary win. But what now? How does the messaging change, or does it change when you're talking to the general public?
No, it doesn't change. And my message is simple: justice for everyone. Treat people the same, everybody the same. As I've traveled the county, speaking, talking to voters across the county, my message resonates with everybody. I've had fundraisers and events where you've had somebody from the far left and the far right at the same event and asking questions. Now, there was one in particular where they kind of got into an argument, during that event, but I thought that was great. We had a chance to talk about it, and that's the point of politics, I think, is bringing people together to have different points of view and finding common ground, and that's my message.
So the Sheriff's Department always been in the news, been over a decade that there has been, oversight by the federal government, and they can't seem to be, now it doesn't matter who has been in that office, there hasn't been a resolution with the federal government. What needs to happen so that you're autonomous and back in charge of the entire agency?
I think a big part of it does come down to relationships. You have to have solid relationships with the monitor, with the people in the court system. But also, I think we're on the right track. And I think we made some tremendous progress, especially in the last couple of years. The biggest hang-up right now are the backlog of misconduct investigations. And again, I think we do have enough people in place right now. We just have to continue to drive that mission forward and get those investigations cleaned up so that we can earn that trust of the community, and we can free up some resources to better serve the community.
For a lot of voters, it's difficult because all of the money that's being spent trying to get out from under the federal oversight is money that could be spent with deputies and people in the jails. When you look at taking all that into account, one thing the sheriff does that other law enforcement agencies don't have to do is you're in charge of the jails. How are they being run? What do you think needs to happen within the jail system?
Well, one thing that's alarming that I read recently are the number of overdoses in the jails. That's alarming. My heart goes out to the families, and a lot of that does have to do with staffing. But we also have to remember why we're in this situation, and that came from the class action lawsuit when Jerry Sheridan and Joe Arpaio were in charge, and which resulted in sucking up those resources to comply with the court orders, and it's cost the taxpayers over $300 million, and that number continues to grow until we can fully comply and graduate from that court order.
One of the things that Sheriff Penzone did in the jails was he brought in the monitors, the equipment to monitor for drugs coming into the jails, and he also required staff to go through the same kind, not at the same time, but in different places, but the same kind of machinery. Did you agree with that idea that you put even staff through that to make sure they're not bringing in any kind of contraband?
Sure, and I think that may be uncomfortable, especially at first, but that's full transparency. And again, we're trying to gain that trust with the community. And that just keeps everybody honest. Just because you're being checked for drugs doesn't mean that we think that you're bringing drugs in. But it's clearly an issue when so many people are dying in our jails, and we have to do a better job preventing that.
When you look at staffing, agencies across the valley are fighting for people to come into the profession. It's not just pay. A lot of it's morale and feeling respected at work. What would you do as sheriff for staffing to increase the numbers to get them to levels they need to be? What needs to change or what needs to happen to make that happen?
What I hear most from the rank and file are three things. One is pay, which you just brought up. It's benefits, and it's job satisfaction. And so what I would do is work with the Board of Supervisors to make the pay scale similar to other agencies within the Valley. That will make the Sheriff's Office more competitive for recruitment and also retention, because it's a merit-based pay scale system, so that an employee knows, okay, in 5 years I will have this type of pay increase. Right now they don't have that, and that's frustrating. I think we lose people because of that. Another area I want to create is a walk-in employee wellness clinic. That's important because the job is very difficult. It's stressful. Many men and women suffer from PTSD or sleep apnea. They may turn to alcohol to deal with that. And if we have a clinical practitioner that's in-house that they can go to, and for their families as well, that will help with job satisfaction.
Well, listen, I appreciate the time. I know it's a huge undertaking to run for a countywide office. I appreciate the time. Again, congratulations on the primary win, and good luck in the general election. And hopefully when it's all said and done, we'll be talking again.
Thank you, Mike. Appreciate it.
All right, Tyler Kamp, he is running for the office of Maricopa County Sheriff. Make sure you're an informed voter. We'll be right back. Find out what Arizona voters think about some of the most divisive propositions you'll be seeing on your ballot this November. Plus, Maricopa County Sheriff's candidate Jerry Sheridan talks about his plans for the office if elected. This is Before You Vote. Welcome back to Before You Vote. It's time for our Tracking Arizona segment. This week, we talk about Prop 314. This is the immigration proposition. It would do three different things. Number one, it would allow local law enforcement under certain specific instances to enforce immigration laws, that being based on withstanding the constitutional muster that's being faced in Texas. Secondly, it would make sure that employers are checking the immigration status of employees. And lastly, it would largely restrict immigrants from applying for and how they would apply for any public benefits whatsoever. That's 314 in a nutshell. Interesting polling data on this, and of course, anything with polling, we go to local expert from Noble Predictive Insights, Mike Noble. Mike, welcome back.
Hey, thanks. Good to be back, Mike.
Overall, pretty big support with this overall for the ballot initiative. Can you explain that 63%?
Yeah, no, it's really interesting is that when polling this very controversial bill that was referred by the legislature over, now Arizona voters will have a chance to vote on it, is that 6 in 10 Arizonans, or 63%, said that they would actually be in support of it, with only 16% opposition and about a quarter of the electorate undecided. It was kind of surprising given how much public, in the between Republicans and Democrats, how they're kind of fighting about this bill when it was being composed, of how much of the electorate's on board, especially among a majority of Democrats are actually in support of it. And actually all three parties, Republicans, Democrats, and the politically homeless independents, ultimately are all majority in favor of them, even Democrats. So I think it's pretty interesting.
When you look in the past in Arizona, we've seen the demographics, how they've been with past initiatives like SB 1070 with big numbers. I know this is much different, but it's still that immigration part of it. But let's talk about the specific areas of the initiative. Some of them very, very popular with all voters. Some of them not so much. Can you talk about the opposition?
Yeah, no, when it comes to the opposition of 314, which, remember, the opposition was low, but what was driving the opposition, because this one's an interesting one because there's kind of like three main core components of it. So it's not just, hey, there's one simple aspect to this initiative. And what you saw is that the whole migrants from receiving public benefits is really driving folks, the opponents, to oppose this bill. But when it comes to some of the law enforcement aspects of it, or the voter ID portion or ID portion, they were less opposed. So it's really the removing the benefits, the public benefits from migrants is primarily the main thing driving opposition, which, two-thirds of them basically are opposed.
So do you believe that if, according to your data, is it saying that if the piece that talked about law enforcement enforcing the laws and employers making sure that they are hiring people in the country legally, if you were to take out the part about public benefits, this would be a runaway, wouldn't it?
Absolutely. And I think that's one of the things that clearly the legislature didn't poll this before, because this would be a slam dunk if they just didn't remove the public benefits. Because what's interesting is that for supporters that are in favor of this, the part they like the least, or what's least driving their support, is the public benefits aspect. And what's driving the opposition the most is the public benefits. So to me, it was like the other two aspects of it are pretty popular with the electorate, but that one portion, it just seems like that seems to be the chink in the armor.
Once again, Mike Noble not only talks about how people feel, but why they feel that way. Pretty interesting data here, Mike. I appreciate it very much.
Thanks for having me.
All right, this is Before You Vote, and it is our Tracking Arizona segment. We'll be back. Coming up, Jerry Sheridan, former Chief Deputy for Sheriff Joe Arpaio, is now running for the Sheriff's office. Find out about his plans to rebuild this office. This is Before You Vote. Welcome back to Before You Vote, continuing our conversations with candidates for Maricopa County Sheriff. Republican candidate Jerry Sheridan, thanks for doing this.
Thanks, Mike.
Start the same thing with you. This is one of those offices that really isn't partisan. Do you think it matters? Do you think the politics of the office matter?
No. Well, it's a partisan race, so it has to be partisan to some extent, right? But a law enforcement officer, especially the sheriff, who's the chief law enforcement officer of the county, should not do anything because of partisan politics. They should do things because it's right.
Is that the goal? Is it just doing what's right? I would imagine you forget your party affiliation the minute you take the job.
Correct.
So let's talk about the job, because what's unique to the sheriffs is that you also run the jails. Does that add to difficulty in the job, or is it just different?
If you don't know what's going on in the jails, it would be very difficult for somebody to step in. Now, I spent 18 years of my 40-year career overseeing the jail system. I know that system. I helped design 4th Avenue Jail, Lower Buckeye Jail, the infrastructure, the system that worked for all these years. And it's a constitutional issue. There's a lot of things that are going on. And for example, at one time, we were serving 30,000 meals a day. And they have to be there on time and food safe 7 days a week, 365 days a year. And so there's a lot of challenges if you don't know what's going on in the jail system. It's a lot more than people think, and it's 75% of what the sheriff's office does. It's 80% of the sheriff's budget. And all those years that I was overseeing the jail, we never came in over budget.
One of the things that's different now and unique in Maricopa County in the jail system are the overdoses, and that's been making national news. The previous sheriff, Penzone, instituted some machines to check for fentanyl and other drugs and made the staff also go through the machines at a different location. Is that an answer to the problem? What is the answer to the problem? How do you solve it?
That is not an answer to the problem. Again, in the 18 years that I oversaw the jails, we had one officer that actually brought drugs into the jails. The drugs come in because of inadequate searches of the prisoners from the outside, and this was an unintended consequence of the previous sheriff getting rid of Tent City, because now you're mixing the outside trustees with people that are locked down in the facilities. So they put the arm on these guys. You either bring it in, or we're going to beat you up, or we're going to get your family. You've got that. You've got over 1,000 officers shortage because they have quit in the last 7 years after I left. And so they don't have time to do adequate searches. I instituted back when I took over the jails, the Jail Intelligence Unit, and they did a good job of monitoring the gang activities in the jails in all different ways. I could talk about that for a long time. And there is also something else that I put together, is the special response team in the jail, where these officers, they were kind of like the SWAT team in the jail system, and they would be deployed every day to search, shake down, that's the jail term, shake down housing units to find weapons, shanks, drugs, any other contraband that the inmates aren't supposed to have. And it kept the system safe. And so what has happened since we had a guy that was from the municipal police department, he was the sheriff, he became the sheriff in 2016. He had no idea what was going on in that jail system, and it got away from him. And my fear is, if I don't get elected, that we will have a similar process happen and continue on. There's been probably over 300, I'm being conservative with this number, over 300 deaths in custody of the Maricopa County jail system. When I ran those jails the last 6 years combined, we had 42.
You have about a minute left. You mentioned staffing. What needs to happen? It isn't just pay. What needs to happen for more people to be attracted to become sheriff's deputies and working in the jail system in Maricopa County?
Number one answer is leadership. People have quit MCSO the last 7.5 years because of lack of leadership. A lot of them went, and they went to work in Pinell County for a strong leader, Sheriff Mark Lamb. People have asked me to run. The people that work there asked me to run. They know what kind of leader I am, and I've had numerous officers tell me, I'll stay if you get elected. If you don't get elected, we're gone. And people said they'll come back and work for me because they know about my leadership style.
I appreciate the time, as always. It was good talking to you in the primary. Again, congratulations. And after the general, hopefully we'll be talking again.
Thanks. Absolutely. I'm looking forward to it, Mike.
All right, Jerry Sheridan, he is candidate for Maricopa County Sheriff. We'll be back here in a moment. Thank you to Maricopa County Sheriff candidates Tyler Kamp and Jerry Sheridan, and pollster Mike Noble for joining us this week. All of our past interviews are on cw7az.com/vote. So if you miss an episode or want to rewatch them, head over there for more information. The general election debates have kicked off this week. 7 debates have taken place so far. You can head over to our website and watch all of them as they happen. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you next Sunday right here on Before You Vote.